Hi, welcome back to my garden. It's actually the third time I'm attempting, or fourth even, attempting to film this video. I tried in another spot with these beautiful yellow blossoms, but sadly the rainy season has brought with its inevitable squadron of black midges, and that spot was quite beyond all sufferance. This seems to be more or less the same, so this is going to be a hand-wavy kind of video. I will do my best to keep still, but no chance. Anyway, let's get on with the video. During the week, I was thinking about a book I read when I was at university. The book itself was actually written in 1971. And if you're of a certain age, you might have read it. It was a bit of a cult classic, entitled The Dice Man. I know the movie rights were sold, but no one's got around to making a movie, although it really would be fantastic, something for someone who wanted to make a dark, edgy, black comedy. But what's it all about? Well, the main character, and allegedly the author of the book's name, is Luke Reinhardt. It's got a feel of being a confession or a diary. And Luke is a psychologist who's hit a bit of a malaise. He's bored with life and slightly jealous of his neighbour. And one day he's sort of reflecting on this. I think he's at a party, and he sort of fantasizes about an idea. And the idea is this, that part of the problem with our boring lives is that we just repress our impulses that would spice things up. So he cooks up this idea where he writes down 6 things to do, puts them on a piece of paper, and then rolls a dice. And one of the things needs to be something that truly, under no circumstances would you ever do this. But you commit to doing it if that's what the dice sort of rolls up. And sure enough, when he does this sort of his first iteration of the dice game, he writes down that what he'd like to do is have sex with his neighbour's wife, the guy that he's jealous of. And obviously that's what the dice orders him to do. So it's after the party, his wife's gone to bed, so he goes downstairs, knocks on the door, and she answers. He's away. And he says, look, I'd like to have sex with you. I think he puts it a little bit more bluntly than that. But anyway, and she's sort of, they've been flirting a little. She invites him in, and that's exactly what they do. And so the book rolls on. And make no mistake, having sex with your neighbour's wife is by no means the first, and definitely not the worst of his transgressions. Let's just say he finds himself murdering someone at a certain point. Now, the book itself was quite shocking. It gained cult status, but equally, its content got it banned in places. And I'm not going to suggest in this video, by the way, just a spoiler, if you think I'm going to start suggesting how I've written down, hatched a plan to murder one of our neighbours the next time they put the music on too loud, no, I'm not going to do that. I think there are certain barriers that can remain uncrossed. And frankly, I don't think Luke Reinhardt is suggesting that that's what we actually should do. The book is a sort of metaphor and a black comedy as well. Now I say allegedly Luke Reinhardt because that isn't actually his name, and I did some at the time I read it, I had no idea about this, but in the age of Mr. Google, I obviously did a quick search, and it turns out the author's real name was George Cockcroft. And there was an article written in The Guardian a few years ago when one of its journalists sort of tracked him down, and he was a lovely, mild-mannered man, and he spoke a bit about the sort of birth of the book, how I think he was living in Spain at the time, and he was practicing as a therapist, and actually dice therapy was a thing that they experimented with, and this was just another internet rabbit hole, but it got me thinking, could we modify this idea, sort of marry it with a few other interesting psychological hacks, and could it be useful for us? Now, what I had in mind was this, first to mention a very interesting idea that a lot of people have spoken about, and I've tried, and it really does work, the 2-minute rule. Now, what is that, I hear you ask? Well, essentially, you say to yourself, if there is something that needs to be done, if I notice there's something that needs to be done, and it takes 2 minutes or less, I will do it immediately. And it really is a great way of getting things done, because it's remarkable how many activities, when you think, I feel like tidying my desk, and it's not really such a mess, so you put it off. But when you look at it and say, look, I could deal with the clutter on the desk in 2 minutes. Well, if you just do it, you feel great. And I've modified this to my 10-dish rule. When I'm washing up, I say, okay, I'm going to wash 10 items. I'm not committing to doing all the dishes, because what I'd really like to do is check the football scores or whatever. But I'll do 10, and it'll be 4 pieces of cutlery, a couple of plates, and a few Tupperwares. And it takes a couple of minutes. But it is amazing because it just gives you momentum. And of course, amazing because more often than not, well, you don't stop at 10. If I could just wipe out the 10 insects that are annoying me, but I know I can't. So, sorry about that, but it is astoundingly annoying. So, I thought about putting this in a sort of 6 activities that perhaps you tend to put off, but break them down into 2-minute chunks. For example, replying to a load of pesky emails. Well, break it down to the smallest unit, 1 email, and find 5 other tasks in that sort of category, roll the dice, and then just do whatever it tells you. And I've been thinking about this as a sort of a game that one might ritualize. Because perhaps if you're a normal person, someone unlike me, you might be listening to all this and saying, but what extraordinary lengths you seem to need to go to do simple tasks. But I suspect many of us are not doing simple tasks. We know we should do them. We tell ourselves we should do them. And we end up putting them to one side. They can wait until another day. And perhaps having a little box that you take out, you open, you pick up the ceremonial dice, and you see what fate has in store for you. It kind of takes a choice element out of it. And choosing is incredibly psychologically taxing. I think that's part of the problem. So this idea of reducing the sort of administration of your life to, well, to chance, seems like it might just get me engaged. Now, of course, I haven't done it yet. Perhaps I need a set of options of, and one of them is start the dice game. But if that was one of the options, you would already have started. There's a definite snake eating its own tail sort of circularity to that argument. But I have been thinking about it, and it's not going away, so who knows, perhaps this will be rather like my ludicrous 100-day plans, something that I might give a go. Now, I do know during the week that there were other reasons why I thought it might be an interesting thing to do, other sort of psychological strategies that this is tying into. I just couldn't think of them. Well, I've remembered it actually, and just thinking about this strategy got me rereading Atomic Habits, and I know in Atomic Habits there's a section where he talks about a good action is a sort of a vote for a better version of yourself. And he suggests some sort of activity. I've started reading the book again, I haven't finished, where he suggests having a jar or 2 jars or something of marbles, and each time you do something on, the habit that you're trying to form, you put a jar in the marble as a sort of, and that becomes the reward in the cue craving reaction reward sort of habit cycle, and he sort of suggests that becomes kind of addictive, and it strikes me that playing this game, it might be difficult to start, but once you've started, you will, I think it will gain momentum, because gamification works. Now, an obvious criticism would be, let us just imagine that I look at 6 areas of my life, that might include writing bureaucratic, sending bureaucratic messages, and tidying my workspace, working in the garden, whatever. 6 different areas, and you keep on rolling the dice. Well, it could be that you get a long string of the same thing coming up. But, well, so be it, because frankly, those who suggest this might be a flaw in the scheme miss the point that if I were to look at those 6 categories at the moment, I'm quite simply not doing them at all at the moment. They remain tasks not unfinished, but unstarted. So if I just get one of them working, well, that would be an improvement. But of course, chance probably would have it that from time to time, you would, even if you do tend to have an asymmetrical distribution of numbers, you would carry out particular tasks. And of course, another issue that people might pose is like, it's a 2-minute task. Obviously, you don't have to do this just once a day. So this could be a sort of a warm-up exercise of purposefulness before a session of longer, more serious work, which might be my art. So there we go, a crazy idea to go with all the other ones, Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, but I'm leaning towards I will. As always, I'd love to know what you think about this idea, or perhaps if you ever read that book and what you made of it, or remember of it, because if you're closer to my age, then you probably read it some time ago. Otherwise, I trust your lives are filled with joy, and from a sunny and insect-replete Brazil. Until next week, ciao.